none of these baits here could buy me a bite today. Not the slide swimmer around the toolies, not the soft bait down deep, the hinkle around the walls and rocks. Nope. Not even the Clash Ghost cranked around some of the deep ledges could get me a bite today. Only thing I had today was one follower on this bait around some toolies. It came out, started swimming hot with the bait when I started gliding it hard, saw my ugly face, and then dipped. So, I don't know. Fishing stuff right now, but I mean, at least I got to see a fish today. It was better than last time out. Well, besides having a crappy day out on the water, I did still want to kind of make a video for you guys today. So I'm going to quickly kind of go over my rod and reel setups that I'm going to be using this 2019-2020 big fish hunting season. So let's get right into the video. The first rod I'm going to show you guys is pretty much this is my broomstick of a rod. Now this is my Moem's. It's an extra heavy swim bait rod, and as you guys can see, this thing is thick with like 2 or 3 C's on that thick. Like, this thing is a broomstick. And the reason why I even picked up this rod was to pretty much throw the Roman Maid Mother or like the 11-inch soft tool or any baits that I knew were gonna be over that 9-ounce range. And this rod handles the mother and other baits that heavy super well. I mean, this thing fires out the mother, and it doesn't have a whole lot of tip, but it allows those baits to be slung further. There's not so much risk of, you know, hurting your shoulders or anything like that with a rod just like this. Now, the reel that I have on top of it is my Tranx 400. It's the high gear ratio. It's like 7:1 to gear ratio. Paddle handle put on there. I know it comes with like I think a power handle. Not a huge fan of it, so I went back to the paddle. This reel is a beast. I absolutely love this reel. This thing is super smooth. I love so much Shimano's reels. You know, a lot of guys know that I have like the Calcutta Conquest. I've used the Cardiffs in the past. I've used Corrados. Just Shimano makes incredible reels, and this 400 size reel is amazing for those bigger grade swim baits. Feels great in the hands. Even though it's a 400 size reel, for a low profile, it feels amazing in the hands. I can cup it really well. I don't get tired of holding this reel all day long. Now, this setup overall, it's quite heavy. It's honestly, I mean, it's a 400 size reel. It's an 8'3". It's an extra heavy rod. So this setup with throwing like the mother, after about 4 or 5 hours, it does kind of get tiring, but if you have the stamina, it's always fun throwing the setup around. I've even used this setup to chase after yellowtail and mahi-mahi in Southern California. And this thing, it actually dogs on some of those saltwater fish as well. I mean, it's such a badass blank. And so that's one of my favorite setups. The next rod that I have right now is my 8'3" Moem's. It's an extra heavy rod. I absolutely love this rod. It's a beautiful blank, spiral wrapped, and my buddy Cam, who makes these rods, hooked me up. Super fat. Love this rod. I throw pretty much anything and everything that I want on this rod, but for normally the season, I'm throwing like the Hinkle trout on here, or maybe even like the Clash Ghost, but mostly on this rod, it's gonna be the Hinkle trout. Now, most guys who throw the Hinkle trout, they're gonna be throwing it on like an extra heavy rod, and I was kind of that guy as well until I got this rod on my hands. Now, with the extra heavy that I have right now, like I said, it doesn't have a whole lot of tips. So when I work the Hinkle trout, for example, I like to have the feel of the bait and the way that it glides. And with the stiffer rod, you kind of don't really get a great feel of what the bait's actually doing, especially if you sink it out there. Now, this rod, I pretty much overload this rod with the Hinkle, so it makes it feel more natural. So I have more tip, it's a little more sensitive, and I get a little more play out of the bait and the rod. So on this setup, pretty much alone, I'm throwing the Hinkle trout. Now, the reel that I have on here is the Abu Garcia. It's the big shooter. It's the Japanese JDM version. I've had this reel for quite a long time. I've caught a lot of fish on this reel. I absolutely love this reel. So again, it's a low profile reel. So if you guys are familiar with the Revo SX, it's pretty much that same exact reel, just in like a 300 size, and it's a super badass reel, and it's a faster gear ratio reel as well. It's like a 7:3:1, so it's pretty quick. So when I'm throwing this hinkle, I can work it pretty fast, the line with a bait like that, because that bait covers a lot of water, and I'm able to pick up the slack, and I'm able to keep tight with this reel. And the reel, it's on the older side. You can still find these out there, and they're not that expensive, honestly, but they're honestly amazing reels if you can find some of the older models. And this is absolutely a staple of a setup. The next setup is pretty much my soft bait rod. So my rod that I throw, you know, the Batesmith, the Huddleston, or even what I was throwing today, the ABT Wagtail. And that is a Lowdown Customs. It's an older production rod. It's an extra heavy rod. It's an 8-foot. I've owned one of these in the past before. Actually, my first Lowdown Custom was the same exact rod, just without the gold accents on this one. And it was fantastic. Myself and my buddy Phoenix, we put that thing through the works. We fished it in salt water. I caught my personal best on it. Phoenix caught his personal best on it. Countless 7-pounders, countless 8-pounders on it. The rod did fantastic. And overall, I absolutely love the Lowdown blanks. So this Lowdown custom rod, it has a lot more tip than, let's say, like my Moems, for example. And it allows me to load up on the cast, especially when I'm making an overhand cast. Even though it's a bit shorter of a rod at 8 foot, I'm still able to reach a good distance with this rod. Now, the reel that I have on top of it is the Shimano Calcutta Conquest. It's the 400 size reel. I absolutely love this reel. It's such a badass soft bait reel. There's a lot to like about this reel. It holds a ton of line. I've got 25-pound on here. It holds a ton. Super smooth. It's the slower gear ratio reel, so I'm able to kind of creep that soft bait on the bottom, make bottom contact the entire way up. Honestly, I love the Lowdown custom production rods. They're super sick. If you can find them, you can actually find them for a pretty good price, and they are definitely worth the pickup. So this is my soft bait setup. Last but not least, this is pretty much my glide bait rod that I've been using. This thing has caught so many fish since I've gotten it. It's honestly probably my favorite setup right now that I have. This is a Lowdown Customs. It's an extra heavy. It's an 8'6". Now, you don't really find 8'6" rods out there anymore, just because the shipping costs at UPS and all the other carriers, they've gone way up, and like rods over 8'3" for some weird reason. So this 8'6" is almost like a gem, and I put it through the works, and it's an extra heavy, but the tip on it, it's super, super light. What that allows me to do is it allows me to load up like the Depths 250 or the Clash 9 really, really well, and it allows me to make those accurate casts when I need to. It also loads up perfectly if I want to bomb a bait down the bank. So this rod is super badass. It's honestly probably the best glide bait rod that I've ever used in my life, just because of the way that it loads up, the way that it feels, how sensitive it can be, and the way that it has a lot of play for those glide baits to use. Now, the reel that I have on top of it is, of course, my Daiwa Z200HS, I believe. It's the highest gear ratio. It's a 7.2 to gear ratio reel, so it's super fast. So I'm able to work these glide baits as fast as I possibly can, pick up the slack line, and never have where it's too much stretch on a far cast, where I'm always feeling that bait 100%, even on a far cast. I'm like, all right, I know exactly what the bait's doing. Having constant contact with that bait, super important. And then you have the soft, fast tip on this rod, so you can really feel exactly what your bait is doing on a super far cast. So on my Lowdown rods, I have fluorocarbon. I've got 20-pound on my glide bait rod. I have 25 for my soft baits. On my Moems, I have 20-pound copoly. Those are my 4 setups that I'm going to be using. I'll probably pick up another setup here pretty soon that I'm really stoked to get, but I'll show you guys that when I get it in. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go out there and chase your dreams.